what I'm bringing up right now. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no, that was my only comment there is
Okay,
it's
yeah,
referring to the color of his hair. I'm
yeah.
not so sure the texture. Wool would be white.
Okay, and
So
go ahead, go ahead.
so I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying so far it's not enough. It's enough to make someone curious.
Okay.
Okay.
Now,
now
what about
continue reading? Go ahead and continue reading all the way to 14.
Yeah, that was 14.
Um.
Oh, you mean 15?
Okay, so
No,
15.
my bad. 15.
Yeah. So then it says, "And his feet, like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters."
Okay. What does that mean to you about the description of his skin, his feet being that?
So when we looked that up, when we were boxing on Facebook, I saw pictures side by side of burnt brass, and depending on where you got it from, if it was from like the Hebrew Israelite webpage, they got the darkest bronze possible.
I just looked up furniture. I didn't get it from any. I just looked up furniture. So if I showed you that furniture, the pieces of furniture that's on that comment, that was just plain furniture. Now, the different Hebrew Israelite camps, they use different images, but I wanted to use straight furniture because I like furniture like that. I like burnt bronze furniture, brass furniture.
Yeah. And at this point, I think, now that I've heard you talk, forgive me, what's your name? Is it
Barak?
Who, me? Barak?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were saying earlier about it not mattering, I can see why it would matter, because if you're right, then that's a major truth that's been sitting under our noses this whole time. But I've looked at the verses, I've looked at some ex Hebrew Israelites who I know it's not monolithic. I know everyone believes different things, but I haven't seen anything definitive yet. And then what I'm seeing too is if you think you're part of the nation of Israel, they're not going to have a good time in the book of Revelation, because I've studied the rapture and all that, and then that Christians believe that before the tribulation happens, which is also known as the time of Jacob's trouble, right? In the Old Testament, it's referred to as the time of Jacob's trouble, also known as Israel, the time of Israel's trouble. And a major part of what that tribulation will be to get the Israelites back to God. But like Jesus told Thomas, he said that blessed are they that have not seen yet believed, because if you're not in that group that gets raptured before the tribulation, before the Antichrist, well, then it's going to be a mixture of works and faith, and you're going to suffer, and you can't buy or sell because you need the mark of the beast to buy and sell. But everyone,
the RFID chip, that's correct.
Yes. So to want to be in that, if it's true, it's true.
Okay.
But I believe if you've come to faith before that tribulation happens, you won't need to see that.
Okay.
That's why the Antichrist is referred to as the man of mystery, because to people who believe before this happens, we're not going to be here stuck to find out who it is. We'll be taken up before that happens.
Okay. And so let's go back for a second real quick. All right. I'm gonna give you Job chapter 30, verse 30.
Yeah.
Then there's also Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2. We're gonna go through these.
I was just about to say that.
Read through these. Then we got Song of Solomon 1 and 6, Lamentations 4:8, Lamentations 5:10, Acts 13 and 1. So first we're gonna start off with Job chapter 30, verse
Before
30.
we read that, I just have a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
To call someone black or white, I don't know the answer to this. Has anyone looked up the origins of that? Because none of us are actually white. None of us are actually black. We're all just goes from very dark. I know
That's
some
correct.
Kenyans, you could argue some Kenyans, but for the most part, if you put it under a microscope, it's just brown to light brown.
You're exactly right. But the thing is that even certain like a lot of customs, nothing's new under the sun. So what we were called back then is what we were called. So so-called, like I'm a so-called black, but I don't consider myself black. But I promise you, everybody will say Giff is black. I promise you, everybody will say Barack is black. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the terminology that we were called in the past, we will
Yeah.
be called today as well. So
And
Right.
then the
just
Bible
So,
refers to
so real
us.
quick, let's just
Yeah.
read the scripture real quick. John chapter
Yeah.
30, verse 30. And it says specifically, you can't get around this. And I already looked up the Hebrew that the skin is skin. My skin
Mm-hmm.
is black upon me. I'm going to run through these real quick. My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burnt with heat. Okay, just real quick, I'm going to get through some of these. Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2. And it says, now remember, Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, correct? So all if I'm from China, I'm gonna look Chinese. If I'm from a certain group, then I'm gonna look a certain way. So in Jeremiah 14:2, there's a reason why Judah is mourning here. And there's a separation between what Revelation 2:9 says about the Jewish and the Jews as well. So there's a separation of who's mourning. So in 14:2, Judah mourning, and the gates thereof languish. They are black onto the ground. This is a figure of speech that they would use then, and they still call us blacks to this day. And the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Why is the cry of Jerusalem going up? Which we're going to touch into a little bit more. Just real quick, let me give a couple more scriptures real quick to back that up. Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses, I think it's just verse 1 or verse 6, but it's Song of Solomon, chapter
Oh,
1.
I'm gonna have trouble finding that one. Hang on.
I'll guide you to it. It's gonna be close to right before Isaiah.
Okay.
It's right after Ecclesiastes. And so it's Proverbs, then Proverbs, then Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon. Then it goes into Isaiah. So the Song
Oh,
of
got it.
Solomon.
Yeah.
Now, and in chapter 1, verse 6. Now, again, these are describing the 12 tribes. It's not describing anybody, any other tribe, but it's describing the different tribes. Now, this one says, I am black, but commonly. Now, the Hebrew word for commonly means beautiful. I am black and beautiful. O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. They were black. It is describing the curtains of Solomon as the tents of Kedar were black. You can look it up. And then go to just real quick. I'm just showing you precept on precept. Lamentations chapter 4, verse 8. And we can also go to let me let you know where Lamentations. Lamentations is going to be right after Jeremiah, and then it goes into Lamentations. So Lamentations chapter 4, verse 8. And real quick, visage and mission. Give me one sec. Okay, so this visage. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but in the Hebrew, going from the Hebrew, visage means face. It means a person's face, like the form of the face. You can look it up. And I'm going to read it real quick.
Yeah.
Lamentations chapter 4, and this is going to be verse 8. Their visage is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It's described in the body. It is withered and it's become like a stick. But this black keeps coming up over and over and over again. Now the reason why I'm bringing up, and I'm going to pause there because there's more scriptures, but
On that one, if I could, if you
yes.
look up one verse, it says her Nazarites were purer than snow, they were whiter than milk, they were more ruddy in body than rubies, their polishing was of sapphire.
But now it's going into
So is that, you think that's talking
her
about
Nazarites. Hold on real quick. Nazarites are her Nazarites. Right. Definition. on real quick. Get to exact. All right. So Nazarite is a Hebrew word that comes from Nazir, which means separated or um consecrated person.
Consecrated, yeah.
Consecrated. There we go. So yeah.
So in both these verses, is it talking about the same people? It looks like so their face was black, like blacker than coal, and then but then up one it says they were whiter than milk. So, I mean, are we sure they're talking about the way they look?
The polishing is of sapphire. A second. Hold on.
The ruddy is red.
Yeah, they were more ruddy in body.
Mm-hmm. Which is red, which would be ruddy would be like the color of okay, so Giphy would be considered more ruddy,
right,
in color.
Yeah, so it's saying they were even more red than rubies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that inside of the Hebrew nation, there are different skin tones and different skin complexions, but it's what it's showing here is a different just identifying the different colors that there are. But right here it's saying that their visage is blacker than a coal. So then their skin cleaved to their bones. It's talking about their skin right there. So I would have to, if you don't mind, I would have to get back to you on verse number 7 and then put that all into context. But I will do that for sure.
Yeah, you can see how a devil's advocate would say that's not enough if we look, up and down the verses because
well, you see more verses referring
swarthy,
I got more verses, black, and those now.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can't.
Now let's go to we could go through these verses, right?
But let's go to Hebrew, which is what